Welcome back, everybody. Now, this is one interview I've been looking forward to. It's the beginning of the year. Some of us are done celebrating the first day of 2018 and are now wondering, what does this year hold in store for me? Also, you may be wondering what direction South Africa could be taking in this new year. And to chat to us more about this, I'm joined by astrologer Linda Shaw. Very good morning to you, Linda. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the show.
Thank you. What are your New Year resolutions?
New Year resolution? I just told I want to be a millionaire.
Of course, yeah.
And you were not so forthcoming whether that will happen to me or not.
We're working towards.
All right. Anyway, before we get deeper into this conversation, let's first talk about astrology. What really is it? Is it a form of science or is it an aspect of divinity? Indulge us on that.
Astrology is essentially a symbolic language. We use the planets to represent different aspects of our psyche, and we use the actual position of the planets to tell us where the energies are directed. Essentially, though, it's a language of cycles and timing. So it shows us all of our lives turn around in cycles and patterns. And if we can keep track of the patterns, we can see how best to use the energies at any time. So it's symbolic, so it's difficult to prove definitively. But when you have your chart done, you'll see that it works.
Can you safely say it's a gift that's being passed on from one generation to the other? Or is it something that I could go for training, for instance?
You could certainly go for training. In fact, I went to see a sangoma to see how they operated and the way that they were working with the bones, and I was astonished at how similar the process was to the way that I work with astrology. It's just that, I work with planets, they work with ancestors and bones and whatever. But the process was very similar. I think we all have that inherent in our cultures. All of us have a form of astrology in our cultures.
Yeah, and on the issue of sangoma, is it really, is it the same as a prophet, a traditional healer, a sangoma, astrologer, a palm readers? What's the link there?
All of us are just tapping into energy. We all have a left brain and a right brain, and we're encouraged in our culture for some reason to only work with the left brain, which is the intellect. The right brain is our intuitive self, our psychic self, our creative self, our emotional self, and we tend to deny that or suppress it. But the more we work with it, the more we allow it, the more all of us will have access to those abilities, all of us.
Can astrologers' predictions be trusted?
I can look at where the energies are going and in terms of the group energy, in terms of the way that everybody appears to be thinking, but I can't guarantee the outcome because at any time the group could change, could take a different action, and they could affect the outcome. And that's the greatness of it. I mean, if our whole lives were written in stone, what would be the point of living with them? Yeah. We've got to have an opportunity to explore and to take a different route. What I can look at is, say, for example, you've got the planet of whatever here, and that means that there is a difficulty in your relationship, and you can think about, do I want to leave or do I want to stay and fix it? Those sorts of things are pretty standard and pretty much set in stone. How you deal with it is up to you. And that's the greatness of it, is that we have those opportunities to change our lives.
But then can astrologers be trusted, or can they make a living? If you're saying that the outcome of predictions cannot be guaranteed, can they make a living out of this?
I do.
Oh, okay.
Actually, amazingly, when I first started working with astrology, which was, 300 years ago, there was nobody doing it, and it was thought of as a really wacky thing. And then women started coming to see me, and then very slowly men started coming to see me, and then different cultures started coming. And so I think the whole consciousness is opening up to an alternative way of working with our own power. The point is, I'm not trying to tell you what's going to happen in your life. I'm trying to say to you, you are incredibly powerful and you can make your life as wonderful as you like.
It's not magic now, is it?
It is. Absolutely. We all have magic at our fingertips. Sure.
All right. Now, give us a general sense of what 2018 will be for South Africa.
2018 is a number 11 year. If you add up 2018, you get an 11. Now, number 11 is a master number. It's what's known as a master number, which means that it has two alternatives for expression. On the one hand, we have the opportunity to become masters of our destiny. This is huge. This means that we have access to powers in ourselves and in our culture that we haven't really accessed before. The alternative is that we sit down and become victims. And that's the big pull. So this is going to be a year of huge changes. Every single planet, every single major planet is shifting into a new sign or a new energy this year. This year is major. everything's happening, everything's changing, everything's chaotic, and yet fabulously working towards a whole new system of living. I'm very excited about this year.
In which sector in particular? Politics, economics?
Politics are going to be really interesting, really scary actually. I think, you know, when you get something going on as we have now, I mean, you know, we've been given Donald Trump, I think, to show us what leadership should not be. We've been given Kim Jong haircut, whatever his name is, to show us that, you know, if we give somebody too much power, then we're in deep trouble, and we need to think about what is leadership and who is in charge here. So what we have here at the moment is a split of all of our political parties, and everyone's trying to maintain their position. I think Zuma is basically going to fight like hell to keep his position, but he's going to lose. And I think Ramaphosa is going to spend...
Wait a minute, did you just say he's going to lose? What do you mean?
I don't think he's going to be around to give the State of a Nation address, frankly.
Ooh. It's quite interesting because I've heard another astrologer saying the same thing, that President Zuma might go this year. So do you think he will resign or be fired?
The thing about Jacob Zuma is he actually thinks he's invincible. He's quite an extraordinary man. He kind of has created a bubble around himself where he thinks he's the center of his own universe and he can do exactly what he likes. And he's been allowed to get away with it for some time. So, you know, you can understand it. But at this point, I think all his support systems are pulling away and thinking, you know, he hasn't really got much to offer anymore. And they're looking at what is coming ahead. And so I think at this stage, although he won't willingly go, I think eventually, you know, he's going to get the message that it's time to step down. I don't think he'll end up in jail. I mean, we don't live in a culture that punishes our leaders. I mean, look at Mugabe, you know, living in splendor. But the point is that we do get to a point where we think, okay, that's enough of that guy. Let's move into another space, another way of being. And Cyril Ramaphosa, what he has to do more than anything else is try and unite his party, because the fragmented systems are literally pulling him down and everybody else down. And then, of course, we've got the opposition, which is going to be changing slightly, I think, bringing in new elements, changing leadership, that sort of thing. You know, I think Cyril Ramaphosa's main job at the moment is to reunite the ANC because it's in danger.
So he's not going to have it easy moving forward,
no.
Cyril Ramaphosa?
I think Cyril Ramaphosa is great in that he's one of those really dark horses. He's got a lot of secrets. He's done a lot of terrible things to get where he's got to. But he is a pragmatist. He wants international support. He wants help. He doesn't want to be isolated in the way that Zuma made us. He was, you know, Zuma didn't care if we were isolated. Ramaphosa cares. And so I think his position is that he's going to do as little as possible to rock the boat. And I think that's the kind of leader we want, because essentially any leader, when you look at him, ultimately wants power and control of his people. That's the best position to have. So if what we're looking for is a leader who's going to do the least in terms of controlling us and restricting us. So he is going to try and impress the overseas market. I think the rand will probably do fairly well for quite a while. Although, of course, you know, with these insane promises that have been made about giving free university education and, you know, the country really can't afford, and land reform issues, which are a bit of a problem because, you know, if farms are still being paid for and the bond hasn't been paid and you take someone's farm away, they're not going to carry on paying their bond. So, you know, these issues are not as simple as they sound. And Ramaphosa is left with them because they've been sort of handed to him. So he's got to find a way of smoothing the waters. And, you know, as we know, most election promises are just that. You know, nobody actually follows through on them. But these were quite specific promises, and so something has to be done. And of course, the obvious thing is to increase taxes. And, you know, that is always done with great enthusiasm.
But then are you hinting that 2018 will be a great year for the country?
I think it's going to be the most fascinating year we've had. It's the beginning of a whole new cycle that we will see massive changes through 2023. And I think at some point, the ANC will either change in nature so that it becomes a different party, or we have have an opposition party coming in. But for now, I think what we're looking at is restructuring of leadership, restructuring of what government actually means. And with that, people taking their power back and saying, okay, what the government is doing is none of my business. I'm going to carry on. I'm going to create my own jobs. I'm going to create my own situation. I'm going to create my own energy supplies. We've got to look at energy resources. And I think it's going to be the most amazingly fascinating year, because this country is one of the few left in the world where we can still be mavericks, where we can still set up a business in our garage and another business, you know, across the road with a buddy. This is a place where we can actually develop the country ourselves, irrespective of what the very annoying politicians are doing with their little games that they're playing, because actually they don't have to have anything to do with us.
You know what, Linda? I'm itching to ask you more questions, but then please stay on. We'll certainly continue with this conversation at about 7:35. But for now, though, let's say a very good morning to Valen.